tray, tub, tray, tub.
If you're on the fence on this topic and you don't know what you want, a tub or a tray, by the end of this video, you will know. I'm going to pick apart both options.
Cons. Floor sits much higher.
There is a metric ton of dust in here. And the small things. People think of this being the accessible height. How to fit them out, accessibility, usability, which is more adaptable from day to day. And how each can add or take away from off-roading. Look at that.
Oh my God.
Dust sealing, water sealing, cost, weight, different variations of canopies. It does look nice. I've had various different trays in my 79 series, but I've also had an N80 Hilux and an N70 Hilux with the well body ute tub. And to be honest, I was equally as happy with either option. I made it work. You just have to be a bit more inventive when it comes to the tub. So there are many different things that you can do with either option. But let's focus on purely just what you have. You've just got the vehicle and you either have an empty tub or an empty tray. Usability with tub and tray can mean so many different things. The usability then becomes quite good with a tub. I feel safer having my tripod loosely sitting in the tub than I do in a tray because the lip isn't that high. Things have got to be tied down.
This is why we strap things down. No harm done though.
The ute tub, on the other hand,
a lot of things you can probably get away with not tying down. You can stack things a bit higher and tie it down, of course.
but when it comes to trays, the floor sits much higher.
However, reaching into a tub, people think of this being the accessible height. I mean, it kind of is, but if you've got something in there, you now have to lean in over this tailgate anyway. What about the stuff in there? Look at the height here. You have to lift it in, lift it out.
It might look like I'm making it harder than it really is, but I'm trying to avoid leaning against the vehicle.
Can lead to a few scratches.
And I say this from many years of experience.
I remember from my construction days when I had some of my team lean into my vehicle.
It got so scratched.
A belt with something on, you know, you're leaning in. Panels are quite big on the back of these. It passes the strap. Settle down, mate. Jeez. Took a bit of paint off, so they're quite easy to dent.
However, all of that depends on what you're actually going to be putting in it, which brings me to this.
Storing valuables with a tray, nothing's safe. This is a shallower platform. There's nowhere to put it. Something like valuable max tracks, putting them in the back of the tray is fine if you're with the vehicle all weekend. But if you're not, they should be bolted down on the roof. You are going to need a canopy. So this is where all your camp gear goes.
Yeah, camp gear, whatever else.
Or some kind of storage box perhaps that's bolted down. But even then, large valuable items, they're not going to fit. However, all you need with a tub is either a hard lid that's lockable or a load lid. You can then store a bike, a bodyboard, a kite board, swag, double swag, table, chairs, fridge, esky, keep your firewood dry, fishing rod, golf clubs, recovery boards, duct tape, cable ties, shovel. That's probably a bad sequence to say that in. Chainsaw. It's not really getting any better, is it? Lawnmower, whipper snipper, jackhammers, tool kits, toolboxes, anything you want to store in a tub, it's ready to do so. And I personally think that is the biggest advantage for having a ute tub.
You don't have to worry about people stealing your stuff.
Things like,
What happened to your trucks, Ronny?
if they're that good, why was I so quick to change my tub to a tray? Everyone will have a different reason for either one, but my reason for changing from a tub to a tray on my Ineos Grenadier Quartermaster within just a month, so much more freedom, was to have all the different options. Be adaptable. Trays are more adaptable and modular compared to tubs. There are many things you can do a lot easier and hide away underneath with a tray.
In terms of accessories like,
Water tanks,
which I'll come back to later.
fixed toolboxes, under tray trundle drawer, if you have that kind of setup that is. Not every tray has them, but it's an option you can do even afterwards.
And then there's the flexibility of future modifications.
We're using these custom and unistrut extrusions, which means that if I did change tyre size, I could shift it around, in and out. You can literally slide these toolboxes around and make them suit where you need them. Even if you've got a tray that doesn't have the toolboxes, you could head to your local hardware store and just bolt one of those on. Doesn't look the best, does the job though. With a tub on the other hand, there's not really many options, and the only option that I kind of found and I did use were these swing away arms. This makes use of that annoying sort of gap you got from the wheel arch back to the end of the tub or to the tailgate. The only problem with those swing away arms, they kind of get it in the way. And if you have drawers, they're not going to work. But even if you didn't want to swing the arm out, it was still some kind of organised storage in an area that's very hard to actually utilise. There's limited space in here. You're not getting a pallet in there. How do you get around that?
So far, there's a fair few benefits for having a tray, and it doesn't stop here either.
This big panel and the other side on the tub, if you damage it, you're stuck with it. You have to panel beat the whole thing. Tray on the other hand, this is replaceable, even this is replaceable, that's replaceable, that's replaceable. So if you damage something, it's not that bad. I mean, it still sucks, but at least you can replace it. You don't have to paint the whole bloody thing again. No, not the toolbox, not. Pause that there. One thing I will say, if you have a tray, you tend to be a little bit more careless if you like playing around on rocks and ruts. That was wicked.
And if you like being careless and you're into that kind of stuff, keep this in mind.
This is a big panel, and it doesn't take much to dent a big panel. If you hit something, you're kind of stuck with it. As you can see here, just pushing in. The bigger the panel, the easier it is to dent.
And I guess if you're one of those kind of four-wheel drivers, you might also care about
departure angle. It's not that great. There's quite a bit of overhang. This sits quite low.
Bloody hell, Ronny! You've already damaged it.
Recovery points are right there. These are the three lowest points. The corners as well.
Well, that's the departure angle. Oh wow.
So has it improved with a tray? These points are still the lowest points. However, when you get on those angles, more room. Look, if you're into that kind of four-wheel driving, there is an option to not get toolboxes under a tray, and then you've got even more space for when you're on these angles. But there is something you get with a tub that you don't get with a tray. The best part about a tub, you can use the tailgate as a table, get somewhere to sit, cook some dinner, cook some food, somewhere to work on something, somewhere to pull stuff out.
It gives you an extra height to the rooftop tent instead of standing on the rear bumper bar.
And some people do storage units that go inside them. Hurricane unit, so it makes use of the tailgate storage, which is generally dead space. It's utilising space out of that. With a tray, you don't really get that, do you? Or do you? Well, not for every tray, I guess, but I may not have a tailgate, but with a tray, your trundle drawer. Or a seat, this thing can hold 200 kilos. Or a table, cooking, storage.
Pretty handy if you ask me. The last 3 trays I've had has had one.
Tucked away.
And providing they're built well, they're usually airtight, which avoids one of the biggest downsides of the ute tub.
Which can be very problematic to get rid of on some vehicles.
You guessed it.
Dust. Yeah. Tubs and dust. How good would the dust seal be on this thing? You can see daylight through that. Not very good. On some utes, there is a hole at the front where the dust can come through as well.
And I'm talking from experience here.
Metric ton of dust in here. It's just a tub, it's just how it's going to be. This dust seal, which I think, yeah, it was grunt 4x4 dust seal. It might be okay for people who don't go off-road at all, ever. But as soon as you get off-road, dust will get in, all your stuff will get dusty. What about a tray? Well, of course, that's going to get dusty too. Storage is external now.
Which means more than just dust.
Rain, mud, dirt.
No, stay on.
But if you were to put a canopy on it, at least the canopy would be closed.
The only dust that's come in is the dust that I've physically put in myself.
Whereas if I put a fiberglass canopy on this thing, I'd need to have some wicked dust seal. Or have some kind of pressure system like I did on my Hilux. Dustmaster 3000.
Holy crap!
Which had a hard lid with a pressure system. but just forgetting to switch it on for a couple of kilometres on a dusty track.
Oh crap, I forgot to turn it on.
Too late.
Speaking of hard lids and canopies,
In my mind, there are three main factors why you would decide to go one over the other. And one of those factors will of course be how much it's going to cost you. And I'll get back to that. But I think the second most biggest point that people would need to consider is what you can actually do in terms of canopies for either option. They are very different. There are so many things you can do with a tub you can't do with a tray, and vice versa. The only thing these two have in common,
the full canopy, the full canvas canopy,
but unless you're clever with a canvas canopy, you're not going to keep any dust out.
a tourniquet cover, and the open rack or frame setup, which would look a bit different on each option.
Doing some kind of tubular frame doesn't keep the dust out, so it's very limited to some people.
And this is where common ground ends. We'll begin with the tub.
The hard lid, the load lid.
We have a roller shutter.
With a tub, it does make sense. Out of sight, out of mind.
It probably seemed like quite a few options, and don't get me wrong, there are quite a few options for the tub, but not as many as a tray.
Aside from the full canopy, compact canopy, half canopy, there's a dog box, tradie box on one side, tradie boxes on both sides, with a gap in the middle, boxes on the tray, DIY tray canopy. The tray has so many custom options. It's endless.
Which you are more than likely already aware of, but there might be a combination you may not have thought of.
With a tub, for about $2,000 to $5,000, you can get yourself a fiberglass or an aluminium canopy for a tub setup where everything is really happening is on the back. In particular with the Ineos Grenadier Quartermaster, there's already mounts and holes made for it. And I'm sure there are many other utes that have the same. It's a lot more cost effective, but you're limited to what you can do with it. And that's in terms of accessibility from the sides. You've got limited space here to reach in with and work around with. You're likely going to have to do some kind of drawer system that comes out, or like a big drawer. You still got to work out yourself where to put all your power needs.
That's a 130 amp hour battery.
So there's a few things you have to work around if you want to go the more cost effective way.
I've mentioned cost, but this isn't the main cost factor I was talking about earlier. I'll get back to that soon.
Or if you prefer the look of the tub, it does look nice. That's where a tray does it different.
That's definitely enough about canopies. The things that most people don't think about. Where the hell the amount of water tank? Or a fuel tank?
Water tanks and fuel tanks, it's a very different process when you look at the ute tub and the ute tray. With a ute tub, there is one place that I would recommend you should put a fuel tank or a water tank. That's right up against the headboard. It's an ingenious place to mount it because in a tub, there's not much you can do at the back there. I've got this blocking me. It's essentially dead space. What do you do with that area? You utilize it. It's semi-mounted, so I can take it, remove it.
And that's not even the main benefit.
It sits either directly over the axle or it sits between the two axles, which is where you want extra weight.
Keep that center of mass nice and even between the axles.
On the other hand, with a ute tray, it's all generally stored underneath. It sits between the tray and the chassis. The center of gravity is lower, out of the way, protected, and you don't see it. It's in an area where you wouldn't put anything else anyway. And what's even better, there's no pump you need to rely on. Gravity fed, you will always be able to access your water.
The actual main cost factor.
So here it is. What you don't have to pay for doesn't cost you any money. With a tub, it comes with the car, so there's no extra costs. Whereas a tray, you're gonna have to fork out some cash for those. You'll be surprised what you can do with a tub, but with a tray, the options are endless. Let's be honest. And trays these days aren't as cheap as they used to be. But at the end of the day, it's really up to you. What are your needs? Consider your needs before taking a plunge. But what do you prefer? Do you prefer with the tub or the tray? Beauty's in the eye of the beholder. What do you think? The tub or the tray?